just to dive in with the album Changeup. Now, it's not usually when a lot of bands decide we're going to do an acoustic album, or, you know, for people, the 90s and Unplugged album, the drums usually get taken away from there. So I'm curious, how was this project brought to you and pitched to you? Yeah, very nice.
That project was exactly that. It was very stripped down, very raw. It's now evolving. It's an ever evolving, ever changing thing. When it first happened, I don't know where my people found the Cajon, but somehow or another, man, like acoustic equaled Cajon.
Yeah,
and
I
so
get that.
and true, and so we started there, and that's kind of where I started. But I started like traditionally, like hands, like bass drum, snare, like just. And so the record is primarily a lot of that, or, you know, but also with the record, I also have to sort of emphasize that with Joni, especially, like she kind of wanted like that whole, like
Yeah.
wooden floor kind of thing. Like, and that's kind of all this was, you know, supposed to be. It wasn't going to go. And that's kind of how the songs are, and very, I mean, just they're very raw, very intimate like that. But that's kind of the feeling. Since then, it's kind of changed a little bit, and I've definitely I've immersed myself in the Cajon experience, if you will. And I did a lot of stuff hand wise, but then, and even like, you know, separating parts for the recording, which you don't do. Like with a Cajon is just, you know, it's a box, it's one thing.
Right.
So, but I would separate like the bass parts from the snare parts or whatever, like, you know, so, and play those, you know,
okay,
individually, just to, and again, to sometimes just to create that, like, you know, just that kind of feeling. But again, it has changed up again. No pun intended. And it is so now I'm sitting on a stool behind the Cajon.
Yeah.
I've found that that Meinl makes a wonderful Cajon pedal. That so now I can play so I'm sitting behind the Cajon. I'm playing the Cajon with a pedal. I'm playing on the Cajon, and then I have like a myriad of percussion stuff. So like at any point there's like Cajon bass drum, like a hi-hat, some shakers in my hand, and I'm like playing the snare on the top of the Cajon or something like that. So it's kind of, it's evolved into more of that. And it will, I think it, you know, inevitably evolve in another, you know, way or shape. There's a little bit of talk of an acoustic tour, like a proper tour in the fall, after we come off this tour that we're going on, our summer tour, and which would be cool then. And I feel like that at that point I could really sort of expand the palette of percussion stuff. I would probably add like a small 18-inch kick, just for stuff, little things, just to have. But yeah, it's cool. It's interesting because it's nobody, we don't know. And even Joni will tell you, if you see anything like on like YouTube, she'll tell you, she fully starts it and she's like, listen, this is new for us. We have no idea what we're doing. And so you're going to experience like us learning how to do this. And it is, I mean, because you can, and we've gotten together, you know, and had proper rehearsals, but there's only so much of that you can do without then taking it to the live experience and having that sort of push-pull with the audience, and how do they react to it? Are they going to sort of clap and sort of help you out, like, you know, keep you moving? Are they going to keep so all that kind of stuff is just an ever-changing, let's see what happens experience.
Right.
So,
I mean, because from what I read, she was not into the acoustic idea, and then when you guys were doing promotion for the documentary, couple occasions where they asked you guys to play before the screening and couldn't really set up the full electronic system. So it was like, all right, we have to do a couple of acoustic things. And at that point, it was like, oh, maybe this could be interesting.
Yeah. It is, and it's cool. I mean, and that's exactly it. And I didn't even do those because there wasn't even room for that. And I mean, there was a time, or one of the times where it's like, do you want to just go up and like stand with them and play tambourine? I was like, no, it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really okay. I don't need to find a spot. We'll find a spot that if there's a spot that opens up and you're like, God, you know what you need there? You need shakers there.
Yeah.
But unless, or if there was that part that really called for that tambourine part. But yeah, but that's really it. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's sort of how this started. And it sort of opened up. I mean, we're a rock band.
Yeah.
And Joni's a rocker at heart for sure, where we all are. And so it was interesting, to sort of dive headfirst into the world. And again, I think it's just going to be more and more immersive as time goes on. I don't know how much we're going to get to on the stadium tour, because that's kind of like a rocky thing.
Yeah.
Pretty big rock. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I'm hearing that there's a possibility of a proper thing in the fall.
Cool. Well, I mean, and because you brought it up. I mean, that's one of the things is you listen to this album and it's like the track band Reputation. It's like, wow, you take all of the hard hitting drums and you do reduce that to a single tambourine.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what's the process for that? I mean, how do you still go into it with that same attitude and say, all right, I'm going to take everything I do on the drums and just put it into the tambourine?
Honestly, there's a lot of them, and it just sort of, and I was kind of afterthought accompaniment. I mean, there was even times that I was here. A lot of stuff was done right here. Okay. I mean, I was up in New York, and we were up, at the Hit Factory, which is now Germano's, and did a lot of stuff there. But then there was one Sunday in particular that he was like, I get a call from Kenny, and he was like, I need something. I need a couple things. What are you doing? And I was like, I'm sitting on my back patio watching my dog chase squirrels in the yard. And so I walked inside, and, within an hour I had done, again, like I separated a lot of cajon parts. Yeah. Because we only needed maybe basic, bass drum feels, very low end tones, and just that kind of stuff. And then I would do a whole bunch of stuff, like, from a cymbal swell to a tom hit to, things like that. And then would just send them all the tracks, and then you can pick and choose. You either bring that track up, you fade that track up, or you don't. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's just stuff that I heard, which is cool. And they gave, that room, and they welcome that, like, just do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll either use it or we won't. I mean, if we don't like it, we're not going to use it, or if we don't think it fits. But if you hear something, put it on, and which is cool, So. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, how do you do that? You do that by if I probably recall correctly, there was probably more there, and it probably just in production kind of just got scaled down more to the part of, doing it. But there's also that is again, like Joan giving that, like that initial, like, it's kind of just got to be like, right. Like we're in like a little shack, like in a wooden house, and like it's like just that kind of, like, or sometimes slower, but I mean that kind of essence to it. Like, not a lot, less is way more. Yeah. And also though, the reaction to it is a little greater, I think, probably than we maybe even anticipated. So the call to do more, which is then that's then made us evolve more to be like, rethink it, a second time, and be like, okay, then how do we then take this than live. You know what I mean? Like, because there's there's going to be we need more than just a tambourine or something. So, and that's what then just started. Whatever you hear, you just sort of like you have that like, what does it need? Once the three of them start, then what do I need to do on top of that in order to just sort of fill in the gaps or create a foundation for them to just sort of shuffle along. So.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, I assume, I don't know, I know there's aspects, the classic songs you have to stick to, but I would think also, with these cases, especially, as you said, you're learning it as you go. So how many times in a live setting do you think it's going to be, well, maybe I'll just try this one fill or riff here, and then, okay, did it work? No. Did it, or yes, all right, we'll try that again tomorrow night. I mean, it's is there that, it seems like it would be, very scary to do that live experimentation and feeling your way around.
Yeah, well, we're at about 10 songs. What do we have here? At a 24 songs, we have about 10 that we could play out at any time. But again, that's 10 that we've like worked up, where now I'm sitting behind the drums. I have like, I don't even have them on me. I have like bundle sticks, or brushes or mallets. And it's just that we've been running 5. Our encore, the last 5 shows have been 5 acoustic songs. So at the end of the night, we play Hate Myself and our crew starts to sort of formulate this little setup. Mm-hmm. And like kind of right next to, like, I'm saying, like right next to my drum world, and then sort of maybe in front of Dougie a little bit, right in that area, to the left, like right behind Joan, and we just sort of tuck in, and it's been cool. So she's also a stickler for that, where no, you won't just sort of play it unless we know it. Mm-hmm. And anything, I mean, you just doesn't want anybody even coming to just like sit in, where like, some bands, like if somebody comes to the show and you're like, oh, no way, you're here. Yo, you know what we should do? Yeah. We should play. No, like, unless you came to sound check and we sound checked it and we've spoken about it and talked about it and worked it out. Right. Yeah. Which is good, because then you don't have that, like, kind of what you're talking about, that like roll of the dice of like, I don't know how this is going to go. Yeah. And and sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's not. But yeah, we don't want to really find out that it's not. Right. So there's a lot of sound checks. And we're really just trying to take, again, once this thing sort of took on a life of its own, we sort of just had to be like, oh, okay, and sort of think about it a little more and buckle down and be like, okay, well, let's figure this out. How do we do this? And that's kind of what we do now.
And then how much thought goes into like the size of the venues you play? Because you guys play, usually, at the smallest, some pretty big amphitheaters. In the summer, obviously, you're doing some pretty humongous arenas, stadiums, etc. And with your normal approach, you guys have a big sound that fills the space. But then when you go acoustic, it's like, all right, well, how do you turn an arena into an intimate setting?
Chris, that is a good, if not great question. I don't know. We don't know. That's to see. Again, I don't know how much is going to be done. The places we've been have been kind of more like, we were in like, say, Red Bank, New Jersey, at the Count Basie Theater, which is a wonderful old theater, probably, I don't even know, 2850, maybe something like that, head count. Which that's kind of if when we spoke of doing this on a grander scale, like in the fall, that's kind of more of the size that we are looking at, you know. Theaters, 1,200 seaters, 1 to 3,000, you know, 1,500 to 3,500. Keep it intimate. But yeah, it's going to be, we have not yet done it on a grander scale in an arena or anything like that. So, and I don't know. I mean, you know, we could get out there and just the roar of the stadium itself could just, you know, I mean, just people shuffling cups and talking.
Yeah.
Could easily maneuver us to where we're like, hello, hello, you know, like, and I'm banging on this box. I mean, you don't know. I mean, but I mean, we'll see soon enough. And again, I mean, I don't, you know, that's how much of that happens in that kind of setting is, again, still, I think, to be determined. I know that we're going to try it because we back it. But yeah, we'll see. You know, you can only take all that positive energy and try to do it, and then like thrust it that way, and see if they catch it. And it's like, you know, it's kind of like a beach ball, and if they play with it and throw it back to you, then that's cool. Like see what, you know. Got to see. I don't know though. That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see.
And then another thing that stood out to me with this album that you don't often hear with any kind of acoustic albums is in the midst of Coney Island Whitefish, you have a percussion solo, which I thought was cool. And I'm curious, how close is that to what you do in the electric version of Coney Island Whitefish?
In the electric version, it's more of like a tom thing, like a tom breakdown.
Yeah.
But a nice kind of groovy kind of tom break. You know, I'm playing all the toms, you know, but I mean, but kind of more in that, you know, like big bandy era of like, you know, that kind of essence of the tom breakdown.
Right.
And then it sort of just comes back in, but that's sort of the feel, like it, you know, infused with some like 80s thing.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what you're trying to sort of convey, if you will. But no, it's yes and no. I mean, again, and that's another one that we haven't tried to do yet. Like in the new acoustic way that we're doing,
Right.
And so we'll see. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But I mean, that was cool. You know, I mean, it was odd. I wish, in some degree, I wish I would have just done maybe, you know, this stuff. But again, we didn't know that it was going to come. We didn't know this how things were going to transpire, and the whole thing was to sort of keep it very minimalist, and sort of just very sparse, and let really the what songs are really made of, you know, like words and melody, and sort of let that sort of do its thing, do all the work. So yeah, man, it's not a lot the same way, but sort of the same way. I mean, you sort of have to keep the framework, that timing, if you will,
Right.
pardon me. But yeah, that's it. Just, you know, sort of, not really.
Yeah. And then
220, 221, whatever.
Right. And then, you know, another thing I thought was cool, because there for years people have said, well, you know, especially in the heyday of all the unplugged stuff, people always said, well, you know, why not this band? Why not that band? A lot of people said, well, you can't really do punk acoustic. And yet, with this album, I think there's still that punk attitude to it. And yet, you know, punk is so very much associated with you know, the volume, with distortion, and things of that nature. And yet you still get the same attitude coming across. So, you know, this might be kind of a heavy question, but given all of that, what do you think makes punk punk?
Kind of what you just said, like the attitude. Okay, exactly what you said, that like that's the thing that comes across because that's the thing. It is that gritty kind of, I don't care really what you say, I know what I know kind of thing. And for the most part, you know, like, is the establishment always right? We're finding out, you know, now decades, and not always so right. Not always the good guys. So no. That whole gritty, snooty kind of like, see, told you so, you know, way. But that's really it. And I think that, and it goes back to words and melody. And if you have, if your words and melody are conveying that attitude, then it'll come across. And then again, a lot of, you know, most songs start right there on an acoustic or some, you know, crazy, you know, they start on a piano and you're like, wow, that Train in Vain was like a piano thing, and then you took it like and became this, you know, or Guns of Brixton started with, you know, on what it gets to from where it starts, that motion and the progression. But that's where a lot of the stuff starts is acoustic, you know, one person and an acoustic guitar.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's and not a punk band, but I remember being fascinated when I found out the band Depeche Mode, that their lead guy created everything on an acoustic guitar ahead of time. You know,
like stuff like that. Yeah, like
that's how he wrote. And it's like, wow, you know, from point A to point B is just miles of distance.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And there's guitar in Depeche Mode, but not like acoustic guitar. Like you would think it would start with like a synthesizer that's like, and you're like, oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's do this thing. Like, no, it's crazy that he starts on a, like that's exact prime example of how things start and where they end up. You know what I mean? You know, but that's I think that's the beauty of the punk thing. It's that, you know, it is that kind of snarly lip. Here's my attitude. Here's the words I want to talk about. I mean, Coney Island White. I mean, do you know what a Coney Island whitefish is?
I don't.
Okay, so it's not nice. You know what a jimmy cap is?
No.
Okay, these are all like maybe like New York old 50s-y.
Okay.
Coney Island whitefish is like when you would find a used condom.
Oh, okay.
Out and that was like Coney Island whitefish, because you would see this thing all like, you know, out on wherever, the pier, the beach,
right,
the boardwalk, and you just be like, oh God, like, yeah, it's not a nice thing.
Yeah.
It's not a nice Jewish thing. You don't go, it's not on a Sunday and you're going to Coney Island. No, nothing good about the Coney Island whitefish whatsoever.
Yeah.
But that's the attitude of that song though, you know, which is even funnier than when you bring it down to just like an acoustic.
Right. And then, you know, I wonder though, you know, like given your history in bands like Bouncing Souls and stuff like that, and the punk club scene that you used to play in, you know, do you think those crowds would have been accepting of an acoustic punk act?
Funny enough, the Bouncing Souls did do acoustic stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you can even go like on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of stuff from like Red Bull Studios, like where we filmed it professionally. It was recorded professionally. We did a whole kind of like an acoustic tour, where so this is behind, say, my drum set, and then so I would have my whole bunch of stuff, and the bass, you know, the bass cabs would be over that way, and my drum tech, and they're big SVT cabs. So my bass tech, or my drum tech rather, sat back there with a whole world of stuff, from like chimes to cymbal, like a cymbal for cymbal swells, to whole like, you know, a bunch of hand percussion, and did stuff like that. It started, the whole punk kid, man, like all the punk kids started doing acoustic stuff. Like one of the biggest, like, you know, like a big punk band, Avail from Richmond, Virginia. They're sing, and they are one of the punkiest, like grittiest, messy, punky shows that you would ever see.
Yeah.
But Tim Barry, you would swear to God, I mean, Tim Barry, you know, has like been like kind of like a professional hobo in his life and ridden the rails, and that's what he took out on the road was his acoustic guitar. So the songs that he writes and you're like, wow, you were fully immersed in that world. And if you would never know, and I'm sure there's people that are like, wait, you have a punk band? Avail? And then they listen to Avail and they're like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like my brother-in-law, like they, you know, knows both worlds and loves both worlds. But I mean, can clearly, we've had that discussion where, like, if you don't know, and you think Tim Barry, you're like, wow, because he just writes such heartfelt stuff. Dave Haas and the Mermaid, came from a Philly punk band, The Curse, and now he is like, I mean, he's going to be the next Tom Petty. I mean, the kid's songs are just wicked, that kind of stuff. And so it's always been that whole punk world has always been kind of, I mean, Billy Bragg, look at Billy Bragg. I mean, so you want really awesome storytelling in an acoustic setting, but with a very punky, super gritty, punky attitude, Billy Bragg. But all, you know, all this stuff, that's what kind of what you talked about. You said it before, like how do you get that attitude across? Because the attitude's already there with everything. And so, you know, with the Souls, it was awesome. Everybody loved when we did stuff like that. It started for us with like a river, and we would, like, in the middle of the set, maybe we would do between like 2 and 4 songs, 2 or 3 songs acoustic. But that's where people were like, oh, wow, that's cool. You should do more of that. And we were like, maybe we should do, like, reimagine some of our songs in that way. And put a different treatment on some of the stuff, on the arrangements, and use different instrumentation, yada, yada. And it was cool. It's amazing. I loved it. So this was super cool. I'm kind of looking forward to if we actually do something in the fall. Because I would do, I have an amazing drum tech, Donnie Reyes, formerly from Phoenix TX, great punk band, talking about punk bands. But I would utilize him in a heartbeat to do the exact same stuff that I did in the Souls, to sort of have this 2-man tag team, just so you can have that wall of sort of, you know, sound. You know, it's like, you know, when you build a house, you need that good foundation. Same kind of principle. I kind of want a good foundation. So we'll see whether I can talk everybody into a more grandiose, like, no, look, it's almost like a small orchestra, or whether we'll have to, you know, keep me in my box and I'll just. But either way, it's cool. I mean, it's been so cool. I've just, you know, everybody just trying to figure it out. Us, the 4 of us trying to suss it out as a unit. You know, we've never really had to do stuff like that. I mean, you know, you come into a situation like this and everything's kind of ready made. You know, I mean, that for at least for me, I mean, the hits were already there. Just learn the hits, play the hits the right way, play them with, and don't fuck up. And so, you know, in order getting to do this was a whole, like, it was almost like sort of getting back to like being in a band. Not that being in the Blackhearts wasn't that way, but you know what I mean? When you start to write stuff and you're going through a creative process, and it just does something to you, you know, as a unit that's you can't get any other way. So.
And it kind of, and this is kind of a jog to the left, esoterically speaking, but it reminds me of, like I saw these, or read these talks, pieces from Mike Rowe, you know, the Dirty Jobs guy. And his whole thing was, you know, he always kind of push back against the idea of follow your passion, you know. And his whole thing was, don't follow your passion, bring your passion with you. And to me, that sounds like very much like what you're talking about. It's like, well, whether we're electric or whether we're acoustic, that attitude, that punk passion, we're bringing it with us to whatever situation we're thrown into.
Yeah, I mean, I have to. I mean, I'm a punk kid. I can't, you know, I can't change that. I mean, Joni can't change who she is. You know what I mean? You're just sort of who you are, but you're just handed like a different, you know, you're used to like, you know, a certain, you know what, I'm so over trying to be analogy man in my life. God, everything I try to like everything has to be an analogy. But you're just handed a different tool that you've never sort of used before, but you're still gonna, you know, just because you get handed a shovel, I mean, doesn't mean you're not going to do it the way, you know, I mean, you just have your own way. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to fling the dirt around, but I mean, I'm definitely going to get in there.
Yeah. No matter what your personality.
Yeah. I think no matter whatever you do, whoever you are, that shines through no matter what you do. I mean, at least I would hope if you're true to what you're trying to do, and more importantly, being sort of true to yourself, then that stuff, and you're not trying to do something that you either can't, or it's clear that you are well beyond, you know, your pay grade,